Hi, my name is Suzan. Thank you so much for coming to watch what I have to tell you. Okay, so I have been out of the loop, YouTube loop, for a while, and that's because I have relocated, and so a lot of shifts, a lot of changes have happened. But I was just thinking, what can I give that's of value and that could be really interesting? So I got the permission of someone who has worked with me in the past. We did a BQH session. BQH is Beyond Quantum Healing, and I do that also. So that's sort of like a shamanic experience. It's sort of like hypnosis. If you want to know more about that and that process, you can feel free to go look that up or look at it from my sacredconnections8.com website. So now I wanted to show you guys this person's chart, because I'm making connections when I work with people, when I do BQH sessions, or when I just work with people. I do more than just that. And so I wanted to kind of show people what can be done if we just open ourselves up to alchemy, to bridging different techniques, different modalities, different healing modalities, because I'm all about healing on all levels, physically, mentally, emotionally, and of course, spiritually. I actually believe we're all spiritually perfect. It's our mental conditioning and our emotions that actually get in the way of that. So I wanted to show this person's chart while I talk about her experience. It's a female. She came to me in 2018, and it was a very interesting experience for both of us. I was actually really surprised. It was one of my first clients, I think, if I remember correctly. And this client is very materially oriented, very scientifically minded, she likes the tangible. She likes what she can feel or see. She doesn't trust things that she can't see. And that has been a running pattern for her because, I mean, I will show this in the chart because it's really fascinating. It's really interesting how this all plays out. And I just wanted to tell you guys that what I do is Vedic astrology with tropical signs, zodiac signs, and I also incorporate sidereal nakshatras, which are the lunar mansions or the asterisms, constellations. So the moon travels around, right? And about a day it's spent in each nakshatra. There are 27 of them. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can share this screen, which is my first time trying to do this. And we'll see if it works. Okay, so I don't know if this is going to work, and I'm hoping it does because I really don't like wasting my time or yours. But I'm hoping that it'll work. Anyway, so this is her chart. I have it pulled up here, the South Indian and the North Indian style, in case you wanted to know. It's a different way of looking at the chart. This one will show you the houses, which is really easy to look at what the kendras are or the activity prone houses. 1, 4, 7, and 10 are right in the middle of the diamonds in the right chart, because I don't know if you can see my cursor. On the left chart, we have What I like to use when I'm looking at things, looking at Rashi aspects, which is a Gemini technique, which I love to use because it makes things very concrete. And so when you're working with people who really like the concrete, I would suggest really focusing on the Gemini stuff, even though it's very cryptic, and you have to really dive deep into understanding what Gemini was trying to tell you, because it's all encoded. So anyway, the Lagna, or the ascendant, the rising sign, is Sagittarius for this person. And this person has the Lagna Lord, or the chart ruler, Jupiter, up in Pisces, the 4th house. So it's a strong body. That's what that tells me. It's a strong, healthy body, because it's in good dignity, having Jupiter in its own sign, because it rules Pisces. It's going to make it a good, healthy body. It's also Rashi aspecting the 1st house, the Lagna. And so that's going to give it some strength. It's going to manifest that 1st house. It's going to help it go along its path in this world, in this life. And it's a very fated life, I would say, when I see something like that, specifically where the nodes are and what's going on in here. And so this is the North Node, Rahu. It's conjunct Jupiter. It's also conjunct the moon. This person, if you know the Gemini techniques, I'm just going to go through them really quickly here. But if you know the Gemini techniques, you can see by looking at the chart that the moon has the highest degree in the chart. And what that means is that the Atmakarka is the moon for this person. Now, we have to take note of where that moon is by nakshatra and what's going on with that moon, because it becomes a really important factor in who this person is and who this person portrays themselves to be. Now, we have the Lagna Lord, the Ascendant Lord, and the Atmakarka both in the same sign, and with Rahu. So this person has a lot of confusion about who she is on a very personal soul level, because Rahu creates confusion. Rahu is a very interesting, potent point in the sky. It's where the eclipses occur. It's a very karmic thing, where Rahu and Ketu are, the north and the south nodes of the moon. It's very indicative of our path, of our past, Ketu, and our future, Rahu. Rahu makes us fearful. And so this person has a lot of fears when it comes to spirituality, has had in the past. We have worked through that. So we're still working on it. And so Pisces is a transcendental sign. It's a very mystical sign. It's akin to the 12th house, right? In the natural alignment, we have Aries as the first and then Pisces at the end. Although Pisces has 2 fishes that go, one goes one way, the other goes the other way. So it's actually, it's a circle. And when it comes to circles, you can't really point where it starts and where it ends. So that's a very important thing to keep in mind when you're thinking about the geometries that souls have within them. So we also want to take notice of the sun. The sun, her sun is in Aries. That means it's an exalted sun. It's with Mars in its own sign in Aries. So it's a really fascinating chart. It's a really fascinating study. And I think that you can get how I feel about it while I'm talking to you. So the sun being here in Aries is going to make the person impulsive, very highly intelligent, but it also makes this person angry because there's a Mars here. And even though it's in good dignity, that just means that the planets, when they're in good dignity, are going to be able to give the best of and promote their qualities the best. If they're in bad dignity, it doesn't work out so well. We're trying so hard to portray that energy, but we actually get caught up in portraying it the wrong way, if that makes sense. And specifically here, what I see here is that there's a lot of anger. So there's a lot of subconscious anger that comes up. She's not aware of it, even though where the sun is, you would think that you would be aware of that, and especially with an exalted sun. The reason why this person is not aware of how much anger there is subconsciously is because of where the moon is with Rahu. Now, the moon, we have to take notice of that too. It's in the waning phase. So that means that it's not a good moon. I hate to say that it's not a good moon. All moons are good. But in this chart specifically, if it's a waning moon, it's going to show that the person is, okay, I'm going to talk about the moon when it's waning. When it's waning, it's really good for spiritual progress, not so good for material progress. And what that means is you tend to, whatever the moon is activating in the chart and helping activate in the chart, you can't really build on it, right? If it's a waxing moon, we're building on that stuff. So if it's the bank, the fourth house is the bank, right? She hasn't been able to kind of make a lot of savings throughout her life for different reasons, of course, but that's what the karma is for the moon being waning, right? We're not able to build upon things. We kind of do something, and then when we're done doing that, it kind of goes away. It's an ending. So we're letting go of things in life when we have a waning moon. We're letting go of material things in life, material progress in life in a way, which is really interesting since that is with Rahu. Rahu's all about the material world. It wants to shine and build that bank account. And yet, because it's a waning moon, and also the aspect here of Saturn, the Rashi aspect of Saturn, also the seventh from it, Graha aspecting it, it really has hampered her ability to build a big bank account, okay? Which if you would just focus on the yogas that it's making, the moon with Jupiter, if you're just thinking very simplistically, the moon and Jupiter together is great for wealth, right? And so what this person has gone through, it's actually not, she has suffered, I guess I could say, in not having the kind of wealth that she would have hoped to have had. And so the reason for that is because of this Saturn here, very strong Saturn because it's retrograde. Also with the Rahu creating confusion about emotions because it's the fourth, right? Emotions, who you are, what you're, it creates a sort of veil with the mind because the moon is the mind, and the mind, we don't really have a good grasp, a good understanding of what it actually entails. It's so much more than what we, most of us believe it is. And we have to go deeper into what the mind is, perhaps some other time. So because of Rahu being here with the moon, it's actually asking her to dive deep into who she is as a soul as a emotional spiritual body. And that has created a lot of fears in her. This person is highly fearful of snakes, of serpents. Rahu is a serpent, right? It's the head of the serpent. And so with Jupiter there, it's going to magnify that fear. So it's not easy. However, in the Jaimini techniques, Aruda Lagna, the AL is another Lagna point, another ascendant point, which makes this person actually really great in a lot of ways. And so she's very generous. She's very caring, compassionate. She's got a huge heart, having a big Jupiter there in good dignity with Rahu would do that. Okay, this video is getting very long now. And so let me get to the points here. So this person had an experience during her BQH, her first BQH session with me back in 2018, where she saw fascinating things that she would normally not have seen. So if it wasn't for her getting this session, she would be totally closed off to spirituality and to finding out more about consciousness. It's a process. It's a progressive process. So we're still working on it, right? I believe that we're still working on it if we're still alive having this human experience. So it's not a one-shot deal for any of us. We're getting to become more aware of awareness itself. And so there's a lot going on here because the fourth house is the deepest part of ourselves, is our inner emotions. It's the deepest depths of our emotional system, of our subconscious into the unconscious, right? When I look at that, I look at the fourth, I look at the eighth, and I look at the 12th for very subconscious things. So this person had an experience of seeing a spaceship. This person she has never really been into UFOs or aliens or extraterrestrials, life in other planets, none of that. But however, BQH session, she became aware that that is possibly true for her, right? So she saw this spaceship while she was looking outside a window. She saw herself as, and she felt herself as a woman in that lifetime, in that experience. And she was looking outside the window. She was in a castle in a very ancient time. And she described the sand that she was looking at. And in the sand, she mentioned an angel was there with wings. And as she was describing this to me, I got the picture of the temperance card. And so after the session, after a couple of years, we talked about it again, and I brought up the fact that it was the temperance card. And I showed her the temperance card because, again, she's not into any of the occult stuff, okay? She's not into the mystical stuff, except that she actually is, because Pisces, like I said, is very transcendental. It's very mystical. Having the moon specifically in Pisces will automatically give you the dream states, right? And having it the fourth house, having it in the fourth house also will give the person very clear visions in her dream state. A lot of wisdom too, because Jupiter's there. A lot of wisdom comes in through her dream state. She's always had precognitive dreams. since childhood, and yet she has never wanted to explore the more occult things in life because of having that Rahu there. And actually, I think that has been a good thing, because Rahu with the moon is not so easy to deal with. And it actually opens you up to negative energies. You're very psychically sensitive when you have the nodes with the moon. And we can talk more about that at some point. And also having the moon in Uttara Bhadrapada, it's a very, very mystical lunar mansion. And so, and there's a symbolism of serpents. It's the deep sea serpents. I mean, it's really a fascinating story. But anyway, so all of this combines together to make up who this person is on a mental individual level. So she has been very involved in creating a very material life. She still is very materially oriented, except that now she has been able to kind of like dive into spirituality a little bit more. She's going the religious route, I would say. She's Christian. Let me see what else I can tell you. So she saw herself as consciousness. She saw herself as energy before she had the vision of having a female body and having, looking outside this window of this castle in ancient Egypt. That's where she was. She explains about the sands. She was in the desert. You know, when we're doing BQH sessions, we want to be able to kind of like be open to the fact that it might not even be in this world, right? It might not even be, when we're having an experience such as this, it might be an experience in a different planet, you know, or a different loka, right? What we would call loka in Sanskrit. And so we want to be open to all possibilities. We don't want to kind of limit where people go, which is why I like BQH, because it's not limiting in that way. We're not trying to look at past lives. We're just opening ourselves up to whatever higher self wants to show us at that moment for our best benefit in that moment, for our best growth and healing to take place. So she saw herself as, we could say, energy patterns that had color. And she mentioned the colors of indigo and violet, purple. And those were pretty much what she saw herself as, which is also interesting because that deals with the upper chakras, right? So there's a lot going on in the mind field. Again, the fourth house being the mind field, having the moon there, having Jupiter and Rahu there. And so anyway, I'm going to go into what happened more recently when we were talking about the Temperance card. So at that point, I said, you know, have you ever looked at the Temperance card? Because that's probably what you saw as you described it to me. That's the thing that popped into my mind. And so we went through it. She said that's exactly what she saw. However, it was kind of like sort of deep into the sand and sort of coming out, the angel was. So we could say that that's herself, right? Herself as the Temperance card. The Temperance card itself has a lot of meaning. Specifically, it deals with balancing emotions, balancing the ability to be spirit and body together. It's a very esoteric card, and it has a lot of meaning, but I want to keep this very simple. And so when she saw it buried in the sand, that is a symbol for us to know that it's her kind of like trying to get out of the illusion that is of Maya, that is what we believe to be reality. And so it deals with Jupiter also, the Temperance card. I mean, you can make the connections if you really care to do that. I suggest you go look up the Temperance card. So because she's very materially oriented, she was like not sure. She wanted to follow this this pattern, right, that we were going through. And so she wanted proof, you know. So she wanted to see the other tarot cards. So she went and she looked and she saw them all. And she was like, no, now I'm sure it was the Temperance that we saw, that you mentioned. It's true. So anyway, this person really wants to have proof of everything. However, this person has had not great luck in her love life. And so I think that's one of the main reasons why we're working together. It's to kind of like make her aware of what happens when Jupiter and Rahu are together, making that pattern in your chart, which isn't great for relationships, especially for women, right? Specifically for women, because Jupiter is the husband. We look at Jupiter as the husband in the chart. And so we have a tendency when we have that to kind of like believe in an illusion so much that we make up the fantasy in our mind to be real, and then get disappointed, disillusioned after. So she has had this pattern where she has been married, and she has gone into relationships quite quickly, right? So when you see Jupiter and Rahu together, do not get into a relationship quickly. That is probably not the best thing for you. You should just take your time with it and try to be very pragmatic, very grounded, because it'll tend to kind of make you ungrounded and think that this person is the be all end all and the savior, right? No, it's not. Another thing I wanted to say about this decision making is that I also like to incorporate human design when I work with clients, because human design, what I do with human design specifically is to kind of guide people to know how to make the right decisions for themselves. And I call it an experiment because that's what it's called, right? And I believe that the best way to learn in life is actually through exploration and experimentation, investigation. If we don't have that ability to investigate and take things at face value, we actually limit ourselves by putting ourselves in belief structures, belief systems that might not have the best thing. It might actually lead us astray from our path. It might lead us astray from finding the truth of who we are, what we are, right? So we want to be careful when we're reading books. And I love reading books, right? I love to study. I love all that stuff. But we want to be careful when we're reading books and listening to other teachers, even listening to me. You want to be careful with these things because we don't want to be clouded by people's ideas when we're reading things in books, even in scripture, right? Because a lot of the esoteric scriptures are very encoded. So you have to first contemplate what they were trying to say. That's why meditation practices are really, really helpful, right? When you're doing it for the right reasons, that is, to find truth, to find what is reality, to find who you are and what you are. So when you're looking at meditation for those reasons and not to escape reality, because we tend to do that in this world. We try to escape reality, and look for ways to escape reality, and that doesn't work in the long run. It actually makes things worse. So we want to meditate, contemplate, focus on what we're taking in, because when we're listening to someone, and when we're reading books, we're ingesting that information, right? And so we're processing that information. And so if we take things at face value, we actually don't promote ourselves as a spiritually evolving entity. And so it might actually cost us more time and effort in the long run, because the karmic wheel is perpetual. It doesn't stop. It doesn't end as long as there's a body to feel it, as long as there's a body to experience it and create more of it, right? Karma is about balancing the scale. Karma is actually what action is about. It is action. Karma is action, right? We're creating it as we act. And if we're acting so we get a specific outcome, well, we're just creating karma that we're going to have to rebalance at some point. Maybe not in this lifetime, but in another lifetime. And if you don't believe in reincarnation, that's okay. I'm not here to convince people of anything. I want people to just be open to the fact that that might be real or not. I don't know. You have to come up with your own conclusions about the world and what is real, what is reality, and what is true for you. However, there are universal truths. And so we want to take note of the universal truths. When we're looking at universals, it's not going to be true for you and not for me. We're talking about truth for everyone. Okay, I'm going into a tangent here. I'm so sorry. That is my Mercury. I'm very, very mercurial. So anyway, I'm going to, I think, end here about this person. One more thing. When we're doing BQH sessions or hypnosis, shamanic work, I would suggest that you consider not doing so much of that. If you do astrology and you incorporate astrology, don't do so much of that if you see the moon with Rahu. I suggest that you contemplate that for a bit, because their psychic sensitivity is so subtle. It's so, they're basically what it is. We can conceive of it as having the auric field, right? We have this egg-shaped energy field around us, the aura. And so when we have something such as this, the moon Rahu conjunction, it creates pores. It's a very porous, it's a very thin layer of aura. That means that the person with this combination will be very sensitive to the energies, to the energetic fields out there in the ether. So they have a lot of astral stuff coming up, right? Because the moon's actually, esoterically speaking, the moon is the astral body, right? Whereas the sun is the causal body, and the lagna, the ascendant, is actually the physical body. And I also suggest looking at the sign opposite the sun, right? Because you're going to have a lot of those qualities too. In a sense, I kind of look at that as being the body as well. You're going to possibly have a lot of the features of the sign opposite the sun. Astrology is so vast. It's a deep ocean that we have only kind of stepped our foot into, right? So as we learn more and more throughout the ages, as we're evolving ourselves, our consciousness, we get to experience what truth is, what true reality really is, and we get more awareness. So at some point, even astrology will be obsolete. We're not going to need it because we would be all enlightened and having perfect lives in a sense, right? And so we would know what to do. We wouldn't have questions. We would know how to make decisions. We wouldn't even question our decision making. This person actually is interesting because this person's impulsive, but when she's trying to make a decision, she can't in a lot of ways. She wants people's opinions, and then she'll make her decision how she wants to anyway, right? But she is looking for that connection with other people, specifically because she's got that moon as her Atmakarka. And the moon is a social planet. It's a social entity, social energy. Wants to connect and nurture and nourish people that she cares about. Her family is very important to her, very, very, very important to her, especially because it's in the 4th house, right? So it's a really fascinating case study, and I'm honored to be able to learn from this lifetime, my lifetime, her lifetime, our lifetime. And so I suggest that when you, going back to my point, Rahu moon conjunctions, because it deals with our astral body, because it deals with the mind, and it makes our auric field very porous, the environment is extremely important. So having calm, soothing energies will benefit the person, even if they're not used to it, even if they're not comfortable with calm, soothing environments, right? And the other thing is that we don't want to do so much hypnosis for such people like this, because again, very sensitive psychically, and we don't want to open them up if they don't need to be opened up to the astral world. I'm going to leave it at that. Go contemplate it, go check it out, study it, do whatever you need to do to make up your own choices. But this is my way of kind of guiding you to realize that this might be a dangerous thing to do for people with this specific pattern. Okay. People who don't have that specific pattern can do hypnosis whenever they like, right? Because their auric field is more concrete. It's more it's more solid in a way, and so it doesn't allow for psychic energies to bombard them in the same way. It's a very psychic thing to have the moon with Rahu together. The other very psychic thing that you want to pay attention to when you're doing BQH work is the 8th house. So if you have, let's say, K2 in the 8th house, probably not the best thing to do BQH all the time, okay? It's a very psychically sensitive place to have it, and look to see what's going on in the 12th house. These are the things that you would want to pay attention to when you're doing BQH work for people, and if you're incorporating astrology the way I do. So yeah, that's what I have for you. Let me know if you have questions. I would love to answer them. If you do have questions, if you like the video, please like, subscribe, share your love, and let me know what you're up to, because I always like knowing about that. All right, so I'm going to stop the screen share, and I'm gonna bid adieu. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you. Namaste.